Emotional intelligence. It seems to be a buzzword nowadays.
Mm.
If you look at a lot of the media, everyone's talking about emotional intelligence, but what is it really? For me, emotional intelligence is not about control or performance, it's about presence. We often look at it and say, oh, I'm emotionally intelligent because I could read the room, I could gauge what's going on, and I could adapt my behavior to that. But then you're not being authentic. You're not really dealing with your emotions, you're dealing with the other's emotions, and you are adapting yourself for performance. So technically, you've become a performer in every sense of the word. So, what I look at emotional intelligence, and when I work with my clients with emotional intelligence, it's about engaging the heart because that's where we become authentic. That's where we build our resilience. And that's really who we are. So, to me, emotional intelligence isn't about performance, it's about presence. And we'll get to our panelists in just a moment. As a brief introduction, I'm Teresa Palmer, who has been guest hosting this Monday platform on the Mondays on the Own It platform for about 4 or 5 months now. And I'm going to be continuing that for a little bit longer. So I'm happy to be here. I am a holistic cardiology nurse practitioner who deals a lot with giving the people the power to be able to have sustaining transformation and working with emotional intelligence. I'm also author of the book, Heal Your Heart from Within. And with that, I'm going to let our panelists give you a brief introduction of who they are and then their take on emotional intelligence. And let's see what develops during the course of this 30 to 40 minutes. Dr. Durain, I'll start with you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm Dr. Durain Irvin, CEO of 3-in-1 Ministries and Genesis Innovation. I am excited to be here this morning. When we talk about emotional intelligence, my take on it is being able to read the room. And sometimes, as we like to say at the Baptist Church, govern yourselves accordingly. Because sometimes I'm loud. I think Tiffany and LuLu, we all cut from the same cloth. We sometimes kind of come in loud and, people call it aggressive. I call it confident, putting my little flavor on it. LuLu, you know how it was when you interviewed me.
Yes.
But in certain situations, you have to be able to read the room. And when you think about emotional intelligence, it's also how you react to what life throws you. Because the diva that you guys see right now, I can't go in the boardroom in that manner.
Right.
But the key is be your authentic self. I can tone it down. Or as we say in South Philly, I know how to flip the script. But still being your authentic self. I don't think when we talk about emotional intelligence, it's taking on the characteristics, the emotions, and the personality of others and becoming that. I think it's staying authentic to who you are.
Exactly.
But just being able to read the room and how you need to proceed in certain areas. Mm-hmm. Now, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to move on. The next person on my screen is Jacqueline. So
great day, everyone. Thank you for having me here. It's just always so good to see everyone. I'm Jacqueline LL Brown, and most people know, as you heard Dr. Durain, that LL stands for LuLu. But I'm also known as the sovereign authority architect for life, wisdom and fire And I love what Dr. Durain said, is because that wisdom and fire that we bring to the work that we do. So for more than 40 years, I worked in global high technology leadership, helping organizations build systems, infrastructure, and strategies that could operate at scale, literally around the world. But, you know, over time, I realized something very profound. The greatest systems that need architecture are not necessarily technological systems. They are our human systems. And that's where Teresa talks about the heart, our mind, our emotions, the identity, and the internal leadership structures that determine how we show up in the world with emotional intelligence. Because many high achieving people are incredibly successful externally, yet internally, they are navigating stress, they're navigating misalignment, sometimes exhaustion, and environments that constantly pull them away from who they truly are. Dr. Rain touched on that. So when I think about emotional intelligence and I think about the work that I do in helping leaders, particularly women, re-architect their internal leadership systems, though I call it sovereign leadership and divine feminine principles. Those are really important. Those are two important things to come into emotional intelligence. You have to be sovereign in your leadership, and you do need to apply those divine feminine principles. And it's not just about, well, those principles are for women. No, those divine feminine principles are for everyone. That's where your empathy comes from, your diversity, your inclusion, and your understanding of others. And so when I think about emotional intelligence, I really think about governing our internal world first with enough precision that our external leadership behavior will be intentional instead of reactive. And Teresa mentioned about performing. And I love that, because that's exactly what I mean when I say be intentional and not reactive. So what I call sovereign leadership is actually emotional intelligence. And it's one of the most powerful gateways that we can have to lead us to leveling up.
I love what you both said. I think it's so important that, yes, emotional intelligence goes deeper than the superficial. And if we're really just reading the room and we're in a situation, whether it be a board meeting, a conference, whatever, if we're simply adapting to what others want us to be, that's not who we are. We could be more restrained, maybe not scream and shout,
Mhm.
be loud, be professional, but still our own authenticity has to come through. And that's where I think we get stuck a lot of times with these buzzwords. You know, things become a buzzword. Oh, I'm emotionally intelligent because I went to this meeting and there were 12 people there and none of them talked and I didn't talk either. So therefore I fit in. So I'm going to see what Tiffany now has to say to us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. I just love this topic, and I'm going to take it into a whole different area here. I'm going to take it into an energetic area, because emotional intelligence, you know, if you're not able to manage your own emotions, you're not able as a leader to manage the rest of the emotions and the energy of the room. If you come into a room and you're very, you've got just all this stuff going on and you're just very high charged, when you go into the room, even some of those individuals that are very calm may switch, and you'll see that negative kind of thing come out. Now, after 15 years in HR, I really learned how to kind of manage the energy in the room or the energy in the building. For example, if someone would come in the morning, I would always make sure I had my oil diffuser on with a citrus kind of smell. So when individuals would come in, if they were feeling down and everything, I would stop them at the door. I know down energy when I see the slouch in the shoulders, no pep in the step. You might have had a really bad night or a really bad morning. Hey, come here. Why don't you just take a nice big whiff of this amazing smell in my office? And they would sit there and they would take those whiffs. And I would just say, so how you doing? How's life? What's going on? And you would start to see the light just come on and shine. And as they left the office, they had that pep in their step. Their shoulders were nice and high, and they were ready to have a good day. The end of the day, sometimes people, we were in a building where there was a lot of action going on, right? A lot of just, you've got 600 people in a building during an event. There's a lot of emotions going on. I would catch people sometimes where, yes, they're angry. They're supercharged. Come on in here and let's get you calm. I'd have some lavender in my oil diffuser. I would always switch it up depending on what was going on in the building. And just knowing that about people and that about myself, because if I would see myself having some kind of, energetic shift go on, I would make sure that I was playing some nice soft music in my office to bring down the emotions, because I know that my emotions are going to bring that same energy to me. So for me, emotional intelligence is a little bit different, and that's my take on it. So
Thank you so much. That's a good take. You're talking about the energy, and our energy extends at least 3 feet outside of us, and that energy comes from the heart, because the heart is our largest vibrational field in our body. It's not our brain, it's actually our heart. So whatever we're feeling, other people begin to feel. And that's why a lot of times sometimes you work in a place and people say, oh, I came in feeling good today, but when I walked in to the office or whatever, I started to feel down, or I started to feel angry about something. And it's hard then to look at, what you need to do is really look at yourself and say, is this feeling coming from me, or is it coming from those around me? And 9 out of 10 times it's coming from those around you. So with emotional intelligence, everybody on this panel does different types of work. So Tiffany already touched on it. What do you do with emotional intelligence in the work that you do? How do you use emotional intelligence to help others? Dr. Derain, we'll start with you. You're muted.
I apologize. Tiffany definitely hit the head on it, because I was also thinking about the workplace. But just thinking in the academic realm, when we think of those individuals that have a high IQ, who think we have arrived, high IQ will get you into college, and it may get you some places, but it's that emotional intelligence that's going to keep you here. How you control your emotions, how you deal with stress, how you deal with those exams that you're going to take. It's a combination. But we have some intellectuals who think that's all that's needed, and that is a mistake, especially if you try to bring that into the school system. It does not work. When you are in the school system, first of all, you're dealing with, I'll use my previous middle school. I had 2,000 students. I could look at my students and tell that something was wrong. And what I would say to them, good morning. I'll come, hey, sweetheart, how you doing? I'm fine. I said, I don't think your face got that memo that you're fine, because that's not the fine face. They were like, well, how do you know what I look? Because I know your look. I know your happy look. I know there's something on your mind look. I can tell a teacher, how you feeling? Oh, I'm feeling fine. Then why is your left foot dragging? Something is wrong. I can read that because my job is to know my people. Very short story. I had this parent come in, and you could tell she was hotter than July. So they called me up. They think I can come in. I'm Helen Keller, the miracle worker, when we have difficult parents. So I come in, good morning, everyone. And I was like, good morning, ma'am. How are you? I'm just fine. I said, can I say to you what I say to the students? And she said, what? I said, your face didn't get that I'm fine memo. And she busts out laughing. I said, why don't we go in the back and let's talk about what's going on? Because obviously you had something on your mind. And that's how I read the room. That's how I change the atmosphere. I see myself as a thermostat. And it's my job to either turn it down, which is normally what I do in the school system. Now we transfer to the house of worship. It's my job to turn it up. LuLu can relate. Sometimes you come in and you're teaching and you're giving a message, and
yes.
And I look, sometimes I give them my little cheer from college. Ooh, it's cold in here. And so I got to turn it up some, get the people riled up so that the good feelings that I'm trying to project, whether I'm in an auditorium with the students, whether I'm in a pep rally, whether I'm in an in-service with the staff, whether I'm in the house of God and I'm leading worship or I'm leading prayer, I have to be able to use emotional intelligence to either turn it down or turn it up. And you have to be in tune with your people. And you don't even have to know them, because I can step into a conference and can read the room and know how I need to adjust. And I think that's important that we do that. But it shows that I'm in tune with myself, because I know what I'm trying to project. I know what I'm trying to give them. They may not understand what I'm trying to give them, but I know what I'm trying to give them. And so I set the atmosphere based on what I get. Or if I get somebody that's really energetic and, they're answering questions and I can see the look on their face and they're taking notes, then I pull them in. And then I had sort of have a conversation with them, which makes other people say, well, wait, she ain't talking to me. Well, I have something I want to say. Then I get to pull them in. And I do that whether I'm with the students, the teachers, or I'm in the house of God.
I think that's excellent, because what you're really touching on is you're using that ability to read the room for you to be authentic. You're adjusting the thermostat, but you're not adjusting your behavior per se. It's not like if a student is upset, then you become upset. Or if somebody's quiet, you become quiet. You use that gauge, reading the room, as your own authenticity and your own barometer. And then you help the others adjust to that and adjust the climate in the room so that it's comfortable. So I really like
Can
that.
I add one thing to that, Teresa? Because
Sure.
you said something that was key, that you don't let other people adjust your temperature. Now I did that, and I can share this with you. I had a teacher. She kind of caught me off guard. She was very rude and disrespectful and raised her voice. And I was like, look, this is not going to go this way today. And so as I told her, sweetie, I give as good as I get. So I gave it back to her. And she was so offended. How could you speak to me in that way? Because that's the way you spoke to me. That's not a good feeling, is it? But then I thought, what example was that to the other people who were around? So what I did, I went to her classroom. She was a PE teacher. She had about 40-something kids. I said, excuse me, may I interrupt your class and speak to you for a minute? And apologize to the class. And I said, I spoke to you in an unprofessional manner. I allowed your attitude to make me go into and I call it a temple, to go into a temple that I had no business going into. So I apologize for my unprofessional behavior and for raising my voice at you. Now, she was almost in tears. She said, no, you were right, because I was so disrespectful to you. So I apologize to you too. And I will never speak to you in that way again. I lie not. One student stood up and said, let's give them a round of applause for them adulting. Look at them adulting. And everybody started clapping. They're adult. I didn't even know adulting was a word, but but what that showed me was I got to be in control at all times. I can't allow people to take me there. But if I do, I have to be humble enough to go to them and apologize and get it right. Because I don't want people to ever think that I'm acting in an ungodly manner and I'm not so high and mighty that I can't come to you and apologize when I am wrong. Made a world of difference, not only in my relationship with her, but in the relationship with the children.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for that. It was so worthwhile. And with that, let's go on to Jacqueline and see what she has to say.
These are such good nuggets. Oh, wow. This is a wonderful conversation. You know, as I stated earlier, as a sovereign authority architect and bringing that in with emotional intelligence, you know, I utilize it to teach women to move beyond the parts that don't serve them from an emotional and an intellectual perspective, and give them that awareness and bring them into more of a sovereign emotional state. And emotional intelligence by itself, when you're dealing with and helping leadership, and Dr. Rain, I'm sure, can appreciate this because we're dealing with a very diverse group of senior leaders. We're dealing with pastors, we're dealing with high-level clergy, but then on the corporate side, we're dealing with VPs, CFOs, CEOs. There's such a broad range of leadership that bringing that emotional sovereignty with the emotional intelligence really does help. Now, what do I mean by that? Because somebody's going to say, well, what does she mean? The outcomes of the work. When I work with clients, emotional intelligence is the starting point. The most high achieving women pretty much already understand their emotions. So sometimes you're dealing with people that already understand what emotional intelligence is. However, sometimes what they lack is the sovereignty over the systems that produce them, all of the things around us that is producing how we behave on a daily basis. So the work that gets done is helping them to move from not just being emotionally aware, but stepping into emotional authority, and then stepping into emotional sovereignty. And I heard Dr. Rain touch on that emotional authority a little. And then from there, it's really taking them into emotional sovereignty. And when that shift happens, believe it or not, several powerful outcomes emerge. They stop leading from exhaustion. Teresa talked about performance. Well, they're not leading from performance or exhaustion anymore. And they're actually coming into a place where they are helping to solve the problems and the issues. And they're not absorbing the emotions of everyone else around them. So when I look at, well, how do we utilize this when we're helping people? Well, through emotional intelligence and emotional sovereignty, they learn how to lead without absorbing all of the other things that are going on around them. And what does that do? That brings deeper peace. It gives deeper clarity for what they need to accomplish in the room. It gives them sustainable energy. And then they stop carrying the weight of everyone in the room, because you've read the room, but you don't want to carry the weight of everyone in the room. And so that's just a little bit. We're on a time limit here. That's just a little bit of the outcomes of what some of these strategies can deliver to help us become stronger decision makers, more strategic and intentional in our leadership.
Thank you so much. What I love about Excuse me. What I love about our conversations and what I love about the Own It platform is this is all live. This is unscripted, uncensored. We take it where it needs to go. And we don't know at the beginning of the half hour or 40 minutes where we're going. It just evolves. And I think that that's really wonderful, but it's also what emotional intelligence is because we're actually reading the room. And by the room, I mean our Zoom and our panel. We're reading what each other has to offer. We're reading how we come into this, what we're doing, and then we create our own emotional, authentic responses to what is going on around us. So I think this is a great example. Did we set out to do this? Who knows? Maybe we did. But I think we're a great example of using the emotional intelligence, using our own authenticity in order to give others information, inspire others, to motivate others. And with that said, let's go to Tiffany, who has already touched on how she helps people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, again, it's reading that room. And when you do learn how to have emotional intelligence with yourself first, right? Learning the power of the pause, which I that's what I teach my clients. Learn that power of the pause, because once you just pause and take a breath, that will change the trajectory of how you're about to speak or how you're about to show up, just taking that moment to pause. So emotional intelligence, again, knowing you so you can know how to understand and read the room and understand that you have the power to change how the room is. If it's going to be negative, if it's going to be positive, you have the power to change that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think sometimes we forget that we have the power. Each of us has that power. And that power comes from our authenticity, from our emotional intelligence, from our resilience, and all that starts in the heart. So to me, our true power lies within our heart. And I think it's something that we don't always give credence and credit to because we're taught a lot to be in our head, not in our heart. And that's a conversation for another time because we really need a balance. We need heart and head on the same page. So, any last words that anybody wants to say? Is there anything that anybody would like to give a final word or words? You're
muted.
muted. I see your lips moving.
I want to piggyback on what Tiffany said. One thing that I would tell the kids that I was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And what He-Man would do, he'd put his hand up and he'd say, I have the power. And that's what we have to remember in dealing with our emotional intelligence. We have to get in touch with our feelings and recognize that we can turn those into our purpose, into our action, bringing people together or tearing them apart. We could relieve a stressful situation, or we could add to that situation. And we also, it can just help us to succeed. I'm going to stay on the positive. It can help us to succeed, because when you have control of your emotions and yourself and you're satisfied with who you are, girl, you can take over the world.
Yes. Yes.
So we do. We have the power.
Yeah. Yeah. We are our own superpowers. So
Yes.
and
I love girl power. I'm all about girl power.
Yes.
I think this is a great way to close this out. We're at the end of our half hour. I want to thank everyone on the panel. And for those listening now and for those listening to the replay, I hope that you have gotten some information, inspiration, and some motivation, and take what resonates with you. And as always, if something doesn't resonate, that's okay. Be who you are, take what you need, and live your best life. Thank you for joining us this Monday.